I will call to order the Homewood Board of Zoning Adjustments meeting for April 2022. First item, or second item on the agenda is roll call.
Right. All right. Mr. Gear.
Here.
Mr. Roberts.
Here.
Mr. Foley.
Here.
Ms. Hand.
Here.
Mr. Perkle. Mr. Alsabrook.
Here.
And Mr. Wortley.
Here.
Thank you. Our next item are the minutes from March 2022. Has everyone had a chance to review those, and are there any comments for the record?
None for me, I thought they were good.
Take a motion to approve the minutes from March 2022.
I'll move to approve the minutes from March.
Second. Who's second? Mr. Gear? All right. All right. All right. Mr. Gear?
Yes.
And Mr. Roberts?
I'm
They can
sorry.
approve these by acclamation.
Yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Yeah, just.
Aye.
Aye.
That would be easier. Okay, thank you.
All right, sorry about that. Next item are any communications or reports from the chair. I have none. Is there anything to report from the vice chair?
No.
All right, we'll get on to business. First case is BZA case SV 220304. If you're here to speak on the case, please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
The 920 Palmetto.
Yes.
Yeah.
First.
My name is Ben Strout. I'm architect for the project. I live at 713 Salter Lane, Homewood, Alabama. We are not changing the footprint of the house. We're asking to put a second story on it. And this, in essence, taking the second story that's already there and fixing it, making it right, making the house a little bit taller, but generally just taking it, making it better. But we're over the setback on the right side as you're facing the house. So I think we're asking for like 8 feet on the right side. I can't remember the exact number, but that's it. One thing to note is we're on the alley, and it's kind of like a paper alley. I don't know how to call it, but so because of that, there's not really any fire separation issues with that. So that's good.
It isn't necessarily a paper alley, it is?
It's an alley.
Yeah, it's an alley.
When I say paper,
It's
I meant
operational, yeah, okay,
not paper.
okay.
It's an alley.
All right, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone to speak on the case, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Doesn't look like there's anybody here to speak, so I will open up the case to questions from the board.
Mr. Strout, we looked through, and I don't think you referenced these, but I saw several support letters in here from
Yep.
neighbors. There was one from a neighbor, I guess, in the condominiums or apartments that on the opposite side of the alleyway, expressing at least some concern that allowing this setback would, I guess, exacerbate an already what she considered to be a perilous position, being in the alleyway. Based on what I'm reviewing, I don't see that the house is going to encroach any more
It's
in the
not,
alley
yeah.
than it is already.
It's exactly what it was. So I mean,
So your hardship's existing non-conformance.
Yeah.
You're taking the existing footprint and just going vertical.
it was one of the first houses built in that area, and so it's kind of like, when it was built in 1920s, it wasn't really the zoning and stuff. I mean, it was on the piece of property, so it's like, hey, kind of counts, I don't know.
Sort of like the alley was poured around the house.
It really feels like that, actually.
The fence that runs along the alley behind the existing house, is that fence going to remain in the same spot?
I think that's the goal for right now, as far as I understand. Is that true? Yeah. Yeah.
I'll move to approve BZA case number SV 22-03-05.
I'll second. All right. In the absence of Mr. Perkel, the supernumerators will alternate votes. Mr. Gear, I'll go ahead and call your name to vote on this case.
Yes.
This first one, all right? All right, then, Mr. Gear.
Yes.
Ms. Hand.
Yes.
Mr. Alsabrook.
Yes.
Mr. Wortley.
Yes.
And Mr. Foley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your case is approved. You have 180 days to pull your permit.
Yeah.
A little rusty here. Next case on the agenda is BZA case SV 220402. If you're here to speak to the case, please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Mitch Bradford with Saunders Bradford. We're here for 210 Malaga Avenue. I've brought with me William Thomas of Shoal Engineering Company. What we have is a detached garage structure that we built, and we are over the lot coverage area by 262 square feet. So we took down an existing detached structure, and then we're building a new detached structure, and we're altering the driveway so that we can get access into the garage. And so we're here to discuss the lot coverage area and impervious surface.
Is that all? All right. This is a public case. If you're here to speak on the matter, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Does not appear that there's anyone here to speak, so I'll open it.
Oh, Becca.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Richard Berliner, 223 Point Sienna Drive, Homewood.
Thank you.
Oh, do you,
Okay.
No, if you'd like to say anything, this is your
Sure,
opportunity.
thank you. My wife moved to Homewood in 1947. Well, she was born in 48. Grew up in Homewood. I'm a newcomer. I've only been here since 1985. We've lived all that time in Hollywood. So we have a lot of history and a lot of perspective on what's been happening in Homewood. And you probably received a letter I wrote. No, let me modify it. You received the letter my wife wrote, and I shortened by about half. She's very passionate about this, but I will not read it to you at this time. So my notes are basically short. But I'm here to oppose the variance request. But just a point of clarification, your notice said the homeowner needed to be present. Is that correct?
Does the homeowner need to be present?
It was in the notice that was sent out by Mr.
No,
Smith?
as long as someone is here to represent the case, in this case, the applicant is here, it's not a requirement that the owner be
Okay.
here. Right.
Well, let the minutes note that he is not present, which may relate to his concern or lack of willingness to discuss. We've been trying to get a hold of him for 3 or 4 days, I guess, and left him a copy of that letter finally when we couldn't reach him. I know he got the letter, yes, last night probably. So here's the problem. First of all, the question is, what is right for the city of Homewood? Homewood has an ordinance that limits coverage to 50% or 51% of the lot line. Mr. Smith spoke to the Homewood Kiwanis Club last week about a lot of exciting things going on in Homewood, but a lot of the discussion was about flooding, rainwater, the exponential increase of rain that we've seen over the past 100 years, the likelihood that we'll have much more flooding as rainwater increases. And the question was, well, how can we prevent that? His response was, well, we do have an ordinance. We only allow 50% of the land to be covered. Presumably because the other 50% will somehow absorb the water and mediate the impact on the storm drainage system. So that's my first concern, is a concern for this community and what it's going to look like in another 50 years, well, 30 years that I've been here. The second concern is the impact on the properties around the site. And he said he wants, I don't know, 250 feet. He's asking for an increase to cover 70% of the lot in the backyard. So that's a huge increase, almost a 40% increase of what he has now. Currently, water drains from that property into what is a right-of-way or the waterworks that also serves as a ditch. But if you look at the property, and I've got pictures on my phone here we're going to look at. If you look to the left, north, there's no ditch. It's just a smoothed over area, a lot of overgrown grass, some debris. If you go down to the right, to the south, and go down a little bit, there is an actual functioning drainage ditch. It's lined by rocks. It's got rocks on the bottom. It's maintained, and it empties into a grate that presumably goes into the stormwater system. I think that ditch is on private property. I suspect the owner of that property maintains that ditch. He's got some beautiful azaleas on both sides. But the water that's coming from 210 Malaga is probably not getting to the ditch. It's probably flowing toward our yard and hitting our groundwater. We have excessive groundwater where we live, and to mitigate, we've had 2 sump pumps. One takes the water to the street, to the stormwater system. The other one takes the water, used to take it to our backyard until we realized it was just making a circle. So we finally put in a PVC pipe that takes it out to what we have on our property, a grate that connects to the stormwater system. So we've spent a huge amount of money to keep the water out of our property, and particularly out of our house. And I noted in the letter that we had one huge flooding event, not from rain, but from a break in the sewer line, or a water line on Point Siena, where over several million gallons of water came down there. And a lot of it landed in our yard and our next door neighbor's yard. And our neighbors, by the way, the Simmons, are out of town, but they, I think, have communicated with you, maybe by writing about this. And so we are very concerned about more water coming into our land, putting excess pressure on the sump pumps, and if they fail, then we get water. And then the third concern, it's not a concern, it's an observation. I don't think there's any hardship here that the homeowner is facing in terms of what he wants to do to his property. I think there are alternatives. One alternative I've heard is the idea of permeable pavers, which function very well to park cars. You may not be able to bounce a basketball on it, but I don't think that's the responsibility of the city of Homewood to provide that. We have public parks for that. So given the fact there are alternatives that might be even less expensive, we urge you to oppose this variance. And it's really for the sake of the city as much as for our personal sake, because one variance here and one variance there adds up to an impactful situation in the city.
Thank you.
Any questions? Has anybody seen the property back there? Okay, thank you.
Anyone else here to speak on the case? With that, I'll close the public portion and open the case up to questions for the.
One other point I forgot to make. I did come up here to look at the engineering drawings that the notice suggested would be available, but apparently there are none at this point. Is that correct? To show the drainage.
That's correct. So we've received concepts in the past couple of days.
Okay. But
That-
nothing we could look at ahead of time.
Right, we just got them last night.
Anything to respond to?
Yeah, let me, William Thomas, with Shoal Engineering. I live at 301 Edgewood Boulevard, here in Homewood. Just one thing to clarify, so the lot itself is only 9,560 square feet or so about a little less than a quarter of an acre. And one thing that kind of makes that lot so tiny is there's a large 50-foot Birmingham Waterworks right-of-way in the back. So there is kind of, if the Waterworks line wasn't running down the back of their lots, it would be it'd be significantly bigger, which kind of plays into this percentage, just to put that out there. So currently existing, there is all the area covered in structures on the lot is 5,485 square feet, or roughly 57.4% of the lot pre-project is currently covered by structures. They're proposing to build this detached garage to replace an existing detached garage, and the net increase in all area covered by structures is only 262 square feet. So they're reducing some of the existing drive, they're reducing some of that area, and then they reduced part of the deck to kind of offset moving the detached garage from the back right to kind of where it is centered behind the house. So it was already over the 50% that the current zoning allows. And so really, that's only a difference of 2.7% of the lot, the change. So kind of, you can see there, the front yard, nothing on the house, and especially to the front of the house, changes at all due to the proposed work. Mr. Berliner's concerns were with stormwater increases and existing kind of flooding that's currently going on. And as part of this, we are working with the engineering department to come up with a stormwater design to help mitigate any increases due to that additional impervious area and just area covered with structures. So we're, right now, I'm working with a vendor to kind of look at a potential underground detention if that's an option. If not, another option would be to do some type of paver system with kind of a big gravel bed underneath it to kind of act as storage to mitigate the water coming off the house, the roof, and the drive. So we're looking at ways to mitigate that stormwater so that this project will not adversely impact downstream properties.
I had a question. I'm not sure if I'm maybe misunderstanding, but the existing accessory structure was already over the percentage, that's correct? And then you got rid of it, moved it, built another accessory structure, and that's still over. And now you want a variance for the driveway, right? So they built the accessory structure already knowing they were over the percentages.
No, there was an accessory structure, and there was a driveway that went all the way down to it. I think it was the red picture, I think. And there were some, other types of, like, flagstone and different other areas that were, but it was all kind of on that one side, the right side. They removed that, all of that hardscape and the detached garage, and they built a new one in the center of the backyard. When the application was submitted,
The permit application.
the permit application, I put it in my report. I think it was, there was supposed to be a total lot coverage after the fact of 49.6% or something like that. So when the inspectors went out to do an inspection, a routine inspection, they saw that the forms had been placed to pour the concrete. And that's when they were like, this doesn't look right. And they called Wyatt Pugh, who's our building official. And he asked them to stop work until we could figure this all out. It was then that we got a scale drawing of the plan, and did the calculations and saw exactly how much over it was going to be. But yes, to answer your question, it was over to begin with. Everything was removed, and we thought it was going to be reduced. But it's not.
Oh, so it was reduced, but just by not as much as you guys had expected?
I don't know that it's reduced.
Oh, okay.
According to William, it's increased by 280 square feet.
262
Oh.
square feet.
Right.
So it was over already a good bit.
Yeah.
But, so the new overage is only slightly more over than the old overage, but it's still over.
But when the
Great.
original permit application came in, we didn't catch it because the permit application represented that there was only 49 point something % of
Yeah.
structure on the site.
Oh, okay.
On the whole
Great.
lot.
Perfect.
May I say something? Okay. The set of plans that I turned in for the permit application that got approved are the same plans that we are building from, and is what's currently there. So nothing has changed from what I submitted to what's being built currently. That's
Yeah.
where I've been confused.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm under that understanding.
Okay.
That's what I was gonna ask, was there a site plan
Yes,
submitted? and
there was a site plan
accurate?
There was
submitted.
a site plan. It wasn't scaled.
Did it show the calculations or anything?
No.
Or it just leaves it up to you?
No,
guys?
it was on the, Wyatt had sent an email and asked, and we got an email back saying what the coverage would be, and, because we couldn't scale it. When they came in, after the stop work order, that's when they emailed us the scaled plans, and we were able to figure out exactly what the coverage was going to be. Typically, or in most cases, we just have to take the word of the contractor, and that's, it. There's actually a section on the building permit application for them to fill that out.
When I went to apply for my building permit, I came in to ask for help on how to fill out the impervious formula, because I don't understand it. And so I don't remember who the people were, but in the office, we filled it out together on what we thought the impervious ratio was gonna be. And so that's what got approved. Then when we're about to pour the driveway, we get told to stop. Looks like something's not right. We then got a surveyor to come do a new survey. And that's when we found out we are over the percentage. So that's the order of how it happened.
So it wasn't blank on the application?
It was not.
Which is wrong.
Oh, great, okay.
And what requirement of pervious surface would make this site plan in conformance? How many square feet?
I don't think any, because it's already with the accessory building, it's already out of compliance.
That's what I'm saying, how much
Oh.
reduction of, oh, you're saying,
They already built the accessory.
but it's two variances, right? One's for impervious surface, one's for,
Right now, we're just, one's for rear yard, one's for total lot.
As it sits right now, because obviously the driveway hasn't been re-poured, I would guess, assuming this is a pervious area where it hasn't been, that it's currently in compliance, but would become out of compliance if the driveway is poured? Or is what is existing there as the bed of what would be the driveway, is it considered impervious as well? Like if we said no,
Then what would they do?
would there be, I mean, if we said no, what effective, would that improve the situation from a permeability standpoint? If they left it exactly as it is right now?
I understand your question. That's gonna be a.
I mean,
Yeah,
the
I'm just asking
variances
about
for.
this area right here.
Yeah, that, we would consider that an accessory structure.
So that would be, okay. So that would-
Right. It would be the same no matter if it has concrete on it or that dense grade base.
Okay.
The base, yeah.
For the
What
lot
is there
coverage.
is
Right.
not permeable.
So the zoning, even though it's pervious paving, it's considered accessory structure.
Yeah.
All right, so.
So that's what we've done that's what you guys have done in the past. You've said it's an accessory structure for turf, but when you put in the engineered section and the detention facility and all this kind of thing, it makes it a little bit easier
So
to accept.
you mentioned you're working with the city engineering department on potential solutions similar to the turf solutions that we've discussed in previous cases, but we don't have a proposed solution yet. Is that?
So this goes into what Sherry suggested in her document that you sent us, that we could approve it under the condition that it was under certain impervious nature, right?
Right, that's right.
Great,
I mean, they would have to proffer that.
yeah.
But it sounds like they may be on their way to doing so since William sent in his report yesterday, that was included. Brian, can you pull that report back up? And then go to the first page, the written part of it. Yeah. I don't have a copy in front of me. William, can you see that? Can you read what it says as far as the proposed stormwater management? Just to
Sure.
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just stated in my report, we are still finalizing the stormwater management design for the site, but we intend to capture and detain or infiltrate the runoff from the site to offset any adverse impacts. We are considering either a pervious paver system with a gravel bed layer to provide the necessary storage volume, or an underground detention system. The general plan would be to capture, store the stormwater runoff from the driveway and roof leaders and slowly release the runoff from the stormwater control, whatever we end up going with. The stormwater management design will conform with what the city's engineering department is requiring to offset the additional impervious structure area on the site. We would intend to discharge the runoff from the stormwater control to the ditch along the rear of the property, because that's where it was going previously. And since the lot slopes from front to back, it would be prohibitive to try to buck grade and go to drain it towards Malaga Avenue. So that's,
So what,
Let's ask for a couple questions.
Yeah, we can open it back up to the public for.
When you say bring it to the ditch, and there's no ditch there, who's responsible for creating the ditch, to make the ditch functional? Is that the homeowner, the city, the waterworks, or all of the above? That's one concern. It's fine to have a plan that says it'll be drained, but if it's covered with debris and all, it won't happen. And secondly, I hope that if you approve it subject to plans, that we would have a chance to look at the plans and consult our own engineers or whatever, just to complete the loop, that's all.
I'll respond to both of those. The city doesn't maintain the 50-foot Birmingham Water Works property.
Does or does not?
Does not. That would be the Waterworks. And when they submit the plans, you can certainly look at them.
Yeah, I think I share some of the same concerns from Mr. Berliner. I mean, it seems that there is an awful lot of unknown tonight. And rather than even taking a vote, it may behoove the homeowner to get us something final for us to vote on, so we know what in fact it is we are voting on, instead of speculating and hoping it's something that's right. Do either of y'all know if there was a variance for the original right-hand side structure?
There was not. I checked. Yeah, there,
Yeah, I mean,
so,
let me be clear. The fact that the homeowner isn't here tonight to answer some of these questions in light of an accessory structure that was originally built without a variance is distressing.
they are
And
new owners.
I
Okay,
suspect,
all right.
I suspect
Yeah.
that existed
It was
before
there.
the setback
Okay.
requirement even
All right.
existed.
They are relatively new owners.
Okay.
Um,
I think punting this would be preferable than having us all vote tonight.
I also think to Mr. Berliner's point, the Waterworks Board apparently hasn't been maintaining that ditch, and I don't know what the answer is if you're pouring the water into that ditch, and he's already testified to the fact it doesn't accommodate or handle the water. So I don't know if y'all have reached out to the Waterworks Board to inquire about that. I'm sure you haven't, but I wonder if that's not an issue that also needs to be addressed at some point before maybe the board
well,
votes.
that's not really a drainage easement. It-
What is it? It's a ditch that would, they were going to discharge into the ditch. Did I not understand that?
I think it's just a
Yeah,
utility
yeah.
easement.
We've
Big
not
one?
seen a plan.
Sounds like the topography falls that way and it's a utility easement, so thereby comes a drainage ditch.
It's not an easement. Birmingham Waterworks owns the property.
Oh.
It's Birmingham Waterworks right of way.
Got it.
Yeah. That's right.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's supposed to drain into this property 2 doors down, which
Here, let Gail see that, so.
Okay.
there is a access to the stormwater system.
Is there a structure?
Yeah, 2 houses downstream, there is, within the right-of-way, there is a grade inlet that accepts the drainage from this area.
I guess where I'm at is that without a design in the city engineering department's hands that they've reviewed and kind of are in agreement with, we have to view, or I personally am viewing this as concrete paving that you're asking us to approve that's actually increased a non-conforming condition. And that's difficult to get on board with for me, at least. And I'm kind of in agreement with the thought of maybe carrying this over is your best bet until engineering has been able to kind of get a grasp on it. You seem like you're on the right path in my mind, and I'm confident you can get there. But with the information we have tonight, it's difficult to get on board for me.
It sounds like you might just want to carry your case over.
I think that's probably the better choice.
Am I being asked, what do I want to do? I don't understand.
Yeah,
You are being asked, are you willing to have the case carried over? Or
Yes,
do you
I
want the
am.
board to go ahead and vote tonight based on the
I'm willing
information?
to let it be carried over, yes.
Okay, all right,
Thank you all.
okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
So that BZA case SV 220402 will be carried over to the next agenda. Next up is case SV 220403. If you're here to speak on the matter, please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
I'm Daniel McCurry, and I'm representing 1905 Kensington Road. The homeowner showed up tonight, Paul and his wife, Sarah. And I'm sorry, I just had to entertain for a moment. We're asking for a very small pool, 12 by 8, to go on a secondary front of a property. This is at the top of the driveway. It'll be butted up against that retaining wall, the existing retaining wall.
Do you, I'm sorry, I was looking down when you pointed that out. Can you point that out again where you said the retaining wall was?
That retaining wall.
Yeah. Where
It's,
was that again on the map?
you can go to the map if it will. It is to the left of 19.
Oh, perfect.
So it's within the boundaries of where the house is now. And then in the end, we're gonna have wooden fencing, like a painted wooden wall that's 4 feet tall, so you won't be able to see from any direction. So a neighbor, a walker by won't be able to see this.
So, I guess this is a question.
Go for it, Megan.
So if I'm looking at this, it's like, if this was like a triangle, like to really dumb it down,
Mm-hmm.
the part on the left is just higher and there's really nowhere for you to put anything, right?
So do you see this one?
Yeah.
That's the easiest one to kind of see where I have the arrow going to it.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
This is a public hearing. If there's anyone here to speak on the matter, please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Paul Beasley, I'm at 1905 Kensington Road. Just would like to point out it is a corner lot. That's the reason for the variance request, which is kind of the definition of a variance, a reason to have a variance. And I have spoken to all my neighbors, including the one I think that wrote a letter that was against it, who's now for it. She didn't realize what I was doing. I've spoken with her, but I've talked to all my neighbors. Everybody is okay with it, and there's no issues.
Thank you. I think that appears to be anybody that would want to speak.
Should we give him a minute?
Yeah, I think so. All right. All right, I'll close the public portion of the hearing and open it up to the board for questions.
Okay,
some people were concerned about like the water and snakes and whatnot, but this isn't.
I
like-
spoke with Miss Helene. She thought, I think it wasn't gonna be a pool. It's
Yeah.
actually gonna be a saltwater pool that you get into.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a bunch of cherry laurel and just nasty trees along my edgeway. That's already been cleared out. The snake's actually coming from her yard in mine, but she's okay with it now. I think she's written a retraction letter already, in fact. There will be actually less concrete than before. It will be stones versus concrete. She's also worried about concrete, bringing in copperheads. I don't foresee any snake issues from my pool.
It's gonna be landscape now.
Yeah, it'd be nicely landscaped versus right now it's just brush, like you wouldn't want to walk through it.
And as long as the city attorney isn't listening, we paid her off. I was getting those ready, sir.
Kendrick
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah, exactly, good.
You can
Please.
bribe non to look at that.
I'm just
She also
kidding.
showed, she has some snake meat on, that she recommended I pour around there, that I will be happy.
We're gonna buy her mothballs.
I think she was concerned that it was a pond.
She
She kept
was.
referring to
She
a
thought it was a
pond.
pond.
Yeah, she thought it was a pond. She didn't realize it was gonna be a saltwater pool that we actually get
Yeah.
into. It's
Yeah.
small, but I think I've alleviated it if her issues.
Yeah, I don't even know where the pond idea came from.
She was confused.
And
Oh.
the
Yeah.
snakes were gonna climb.
The trees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She didn't realize, A, that I bought that. I just moved 7 houses down. She didn't realize it was me, and she didn't realize what we were doing. And I didn't even know she'd written a letter. I knocked on her door, I wrote a letter against it. I didn't realize it was you. We're all good, I think, so no issues.
Yeah, she had written in a letter of retraction, actually.
She did. And there was one other letter of support from the neighbor up immediately across the street. So there were two.
Which neighbor was that? Which neighbor was that?
Right across the street, the address, I can't remember her name now, off of Kensington, on the corner lot opposite.
Mitchell.
It's the right, on the corner lot
Folks that really
opposite
come to
yours,
the front
property.
yard for Halloween.
Mitchell, yeah.
Yeah.
Who also has a pool on the corner lot.
Yes.
I'd like to point out.
I move we vote to approve case SV 22-04-03.
Second.
Mr. Porter? Okay. All right. Mr. Roberts, you will be voting on this.
Oh, because we carried it over, oh, yes.
That's right, you didn't vote on, it was consensus.
Yes.
All right, so, on this one, all right, Mr. Roberts.
Wait,
How did you vote?
just have to be careful. I think
Yeah,
the
but
original motion,
was
Mr.
not
Gere
Mr.
made,
Gere.
it was not, if you're not voting, that's what threw me off, is I thought he was voting on it.
Yeah,
Should we move again, start that process over?
probably just
Just
to
to
be
clean
on
the
the arrow
record.
the side.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah, since we're alternating, it gets a little confusing. All right, so, well,
I'll move to approve
all right.
BZA case SV 22-04-03.
Okay. And Mr. Workley, you
I'll second.
second that again? All right. Now, Mr. Roberts, well,
Yes.
all right. Ms. Hand,
Yes.
Mr. Alsabrook,
Yes.
Mr. Workley,
Yes.
and Mr. Foley.
Yes. All right, your case has been approved. You have 180 days to pull your permit.
Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all.
Have a good night.
And with that, wraps up the agenda, so I will close BZA case, or the BZA meeting for April 2022.